Susan. Hello, everybody. So lovely to see everybody in person. That is the only time I'm going to mention the pandemic. Nothing is going to come into this talk about the pandemic at all. We're going to be doing something completely new today. So, yes, as I was introduced, I am Rachel Wright. I was the head of admissions at Queen Anne's School, where I worked for 14 years. I decided during the pandemic that I'd had enough, as many people in our industry unfortunately did, and decided that it was time for me to start something new and to start spreading my skills around other schools. So I worked at Queen Anne's, as I said, for 14 years, but I wasn't always in the admissions office. I did what I call my own graduate trainee scheme within the organisation, whereby I started to work as a pastoral assistant in one of the boarding houses, learned all about how the boarding side of the school worked. I then was picked up on my CV when they had a bit of a crisis in the geography department that I did have a degree and a master's in geography, and they asked me to stand in and do some geography teaching for a term, which of course lasted 2 years. So I do have a little bit of teaching of geography under my belt as well. I worked in the PE department. I learned all about the reporting side of things. So I became a little bit of a mini expert within the school and realised that lots of people were asking me questions. And when a job in admissions came up, I thought, okay, I can do that, because I pretty much know everything about the school. Having left Queen Anne's, I now don't really have a case study to talk to you about, but I have, since January, been working in many schools. And the most eye-opening side of things for me is that I've started working in prep schools, which I had no experience of before. I've worked in single-sex schools, co-ed schools. I've recently even worked in a state school. And this means that I've had the most enlightening experience over the last 3 months, which has made me really realise that none of you are doing the same job. You might have the same job title, but your jobs are so far apart. It's been incredibly enlightening. So today I'm really going to embrace that and try to do a catch-all. No job is the same. If you're an admissions registrar, if you're a head of admissions, whatever your title, you're doing a completely different job to the person next to you. Your school is different, and all of the people who are coming to your school are completely different. So yes, as we mentioned, I'm a geography graduate. I also did a bit of teaching in geography, so I have 2 main passions in my life: independent schools admissions and geography. And today, using the analogy of your admissions process as a watercourse or a river or a stream, I'm going to talk to you about how I visualise the admissions process in a conceptual way. I was very grateful to be anchor because actually I only have to do 10% of a good job. I'm very concerned that we have an artist at the side here who's done a much better job than me with some of my slides, as you're going to see, because I decided to draw my own slides. So, as a geographer, here I am, I see every process really simply. Absolutely every process that you can think of has an input, a streamline, and an output. And today I'm going to explain this by using the flow of water along the watercourse as an analogy of the flow of applicants to a school along the admissions pathway. Really quickly, after getting off the treadmill of being a full-time head of admissions, it really came to my realisation that actually once you get off the hamster wheel and start thinking about things slightly differently, you can start thinking about your customer journey with a bit of distance between you, how they're actually seeing everything. And my biggest tip to anybody working in admissions in any school is to put yourself in the shoes of the customer. By that, I mean the customer as a child, and I also mean the adult. You also need to be thinking about who you're selling your school to and who are the best sellers within that school. Because in my analogy of a watercourse, the whole aim is to try to reduce the resistance of flow or make your flow as efficient as possible. And in able to do that, you need to clearly visualise your customer journey first. So as I said, I'm going to introduce my conceptual idea of an admissions pathway as a watercourse with the aim of optimising efficiencies, reducing resistances to flow, and ultimately streamlining. So as you can see, I see our applicants as the drops of water, and if anyone in here is a geographer as well, we're talking about precipitation. So we're talking about rain, hail, snow, mist. Those drops of water are the precipitation flowing into your watercourse, flowing into your admissions pathways, and they're flowing in from various tributaries or feeder schools. I really visualise the admissions journey as two banks of the river. We've got the north bank, upon which the adults or the decision makers are flowing down your watercourse, and we've got the south bank, which is actually the child. Because I don't know about you, but over the 14 years that I was involved in admissions, I feel like the decision very much switched from the people who own or hold the purse strings to being much more about the decision made by the child. So I want to get everybody thinking about these two customer journeys, whether you're a little person or a slightly taller person. I also see bridges across your waterway. These are the bridges where the two journeys converge, if you like. You have the parents on one side of the bank, the children on the other side of the bank, and there's bridges in between, and they're mainly the events that you are holding. So your open mornings, your taster days, etc., etc. Now, really importantly, I see the admissions team as the really strong banks of the river, channeling the applicants toward the end of the journey, the ocean, letting them flow out into the main school and keeping them on track. And I want you all to think about making sure the sides of the river are shored up and held strong as well. Later on, I'm going to talk about meanders or backwaters as well, where I see candidates who go off of the main watercourse who may be undertaking their scholarship process or their bursary process. And finally, I'm going to talk to you about blockages in the channel as well. Maybe even talk about the beavers who might be in your school creating the dams that are causing leakages. But we can talk about that later. Whether you work in a school whose admissions flow can be likened to the Thames or a bubbling brook, I hope that we can help to reduce the resistances and talk about how to reduce blockages and leakages in your channels. So when I first started thinking about what on earth am I going to say to everybody about how to reduce resistance and maximise streamlining, I thought, okay, I'm going to look up the definition of streamlining. And the definition in the dictionary that I found was all about creating a form with very little resistance to flow, increasing speed and the ease of movement. And that's what we all want. We want all of those bits of precipitation flowing down the river to the end, coming out into the main school as quickly as we can, and making sure they don't leak out into our competitors' waterways. So by seeing your admissions pathway as a watercourse, I hope you'll be able to go back to your school and talk to your wider teams with the aim of focusing on reducing resistance to flow and increasing the speed and ease of flow, in short, the very definition of streamlining. But crucially, everybody in your school must understand and clearly visualise your customer journey before you can begin to optimise or streamline it. By visualising every step on your customer journey and looking at your resources and activities, you can do a business process review of the admissions process. You can see how you can optimise your business. The first part of any such review is to identify what you're doing now, what you then propose, and how you're going to make those changes so that you can optimise everything. When I spoke at the AMKIS Connect event that was online in November, I gave really detailed explanations on how at Queen Anne's I streamlined the process and became a paperless office. You're very welcome to watch that presentation. I know it's still on the website. But as I said, I don't actually work at one particular school at the moment, and because I am a consultant, I tend to be quite discreet about which schools I'm working at, so I'm not going to use one particular case study today. What I would like you to do is start thinking about, when you go back to your school, how you can visualise your customer journey by drawing your own watercourse, and how important it is to take your whole school team along with you. Not just your admissions team, but also your governors, the leadership team, your heads of department, your teachers, even the pastoral carers within your school, and the healthcare professionals too. We'll talk about this later. Every school is unique, as I said at the beginning. Every school has a different size water school course, so every school's admissions pathway is unique, and I've absolutely come to appreciate this in the last few months when I've been dipping in and out of lots of different schools. You're all working in different schools. You all have completely different models and completely different customers, and I hope that by talking about a generalised concept, a river, I can resonate with you all. So some of you may be working in a small prep school, which I think of as a brook. Some may be in a large prep school or a senior school, which could be a bubbling little stream, or you may even have a large river. I actually took this photograph just a few days ago and was walking along by that bridge yesterday. It's at Sonning, so I live in Caversham, which is near Reading, right on the Thames, and I'm really pleased to say that as I walked from Sonning, I walked downstream, and I got to Shiplake College, and I can see some colleagues here from Shiplake College today. You may even be a waiting list school. Ooh, that's so amazing and exciting. You might be the Amazon, you might have this enormous stream of flow, or you could be a group of schools, perhaps a set of international schools, so you've got a huge delta. Whichever school you are, or whatever size your water course is, I hope that this will be relevant to you. So as I said, every single applicant is different, and here I'm using the analogy of snowflakes, although that sometimes makes you think that people are a bit flaky. I'm not imagining that our applicants are flaky in any way, but I do want you to think about how every applicant is completely unique, just like a snowflake is. I mentioned earlier that I very much believe that every process has inputs and outputs, and here our applicants, or our snowflakes, will be our input, and the output is going to be happy new starters at the school. In my watercourse analogy, the applicants can be seen of any drops of water. We want them all to be unique, we want them all to feel unique, and we want them all to be treated as individuals. We want a steady flow of precipitation into our watercourses, and these may come via various tributaries or feeder streams, all of which must be nurtured. Once we've nurtured our snowflakes and tributaries, the admissions team need to have the strong banks of the watercourse, holding that channel open, making the flow efficient, reducing any resistance, and keeping the flow on course. Shoring up the banks, removing obstacles, and keeping those applicants flowing through and on track is their main objective. We want those inputs to be fantastic outputs, happy on induction day. Here's my artistry. Sorry, I'm really sorry. It's nowhere near as good as yours. So, as I said, I picture every admissions pathway as a watercourse with output and input. So the applicants are your input, your new starters are your output, and in an ideal world, everybody would just have a straight line in the direction of flow with absolutely no resistance and no twists and turns. But we all know that's not the case. As I said, there's two banks on my river, the adults on one side and the children on the other. And in an ideal world, they would all go in a straight line from A to B. Streamlining, a form that presents very little resistance to flow, increasing speed and ease of movement. However, in reality, I know your river's not going to look like this. We all have complications. We have complicated watercourses, and the next series of diagrams will show you this. So good at art. I want to talk to you about the touch points on your watercourse. Here I'm mainly talking about your bridges. So where your children and your adults are converging, coming together. Although they're on different journeys, there are touch points where they have to come together and make decisions together. Maybe they're looking at the view, maybe they're playing poo sticks. What's most important is that they come together on the journey. In real life, the bridges are events at which both adults and children are exposed to your schools. That might be visits, tours, open mornings, taster days. It is important to identify your bridges along the watercourse and to optimise them, making sure that they cause no resistance in your watercourse. This is all part of your business process review. It should work to make sure the whole team is working towards the same goal, and you're optimising every opportunity that you have to expose your school to the decision makers, whether they're this size or this size. Are you showing your school to the best at every event? Are you thinking about the adults and the children at every event? Are you making sure that you expose everybody to every facility, as many fantastic staff as you've got, and everything that you can possibly show them at every event? The most important thing that I want you to take away from today is that I really advocate taking some time out, taking a little bit of a space and working with your team, maybe your wider team, not just the admissions staff who you brainstorm with every day, but the wider team, and using all of the facilities and skills that you've got within the school to make sure that you are exposing your clients to as much of the school as possible. Think about how many bridges you actually need on your watercourse. Have you got enough at the moment? Have you got them in the right place? Have you got the right people involved? Have you got too many? Does it mean that actually the stresses on your admissions teams are too much and the sides of the watercourse are going to crumble? Analyse the workflow, propose changes, implement changes to increase productivity and improve your performance. I would encourage you all to ring-fence some time to do a business process review of every step along your admissions pathway to check that you're doing the right thing. We have all just been through a very difficult time, and we're coming out the other side, hopefully. Now is the time to regroup and work out whether you're actually doing things in the right way. It's so easy just to repeat everything every year without thinking about, has your customer base actually evolved? Has your school evolved? Are you doing it in the best possible way? Of course, there are other touch points along your river as well. These are shown in red. There are things that just really involve the parents, filling in the registration forms, receiving your new parent information pack. Take a step back and check that you're doing everything in the most optimised way that would reduce any resistance. Are there any forms in there that people just don't understand? Do you have a parent information pack online where one of your forms has to be printed off and sent in, when actually your parents want to be sitting in front of the computer while they're in bed, maybe even having a glass of wine, just filling in all of the forms on one day? Starting a new school is a really onerous process. There's lots of paperwork. Try and make it as easy as you possibly can. Can they all pay their registration fees online? Is it an easy process? Please don't ask them to get a checkbook out. Are the interviews and assessment days where the child is actually being interviewed and assessed being used to optimise the opportunity to expose the school to the parents who drop them off as well? Or are you just saying, thanks, I've got your child for the day, off you go? Could they have a tour on those events? Can they meet some staff? Could they stay and have lunch? Are you exposing the school to those decision makers as much as you possibly can? Is it a good time for the parents and the children to meet current pupils so that they can see what their role models are going to be like? The same with the entrance exams. If the children are sitting the entrance exams, what are the adults doing? Are you signposting them into local areas so that they can go and have a look around? Are you keeping them on the school so that you can maximise the opportunity to expose them to your school again? Think about what the parents are doing and make sure that you showcase your school at every opportunity. On those kind of events, do you need to widen the admissions team? Who's invigilating? Should it be the admissions team, or should they be out selling to the parents? Should it be the teachers who are, or the invigilators that usually do your exams to show that professional side of things? Is it a great opportunity to run some workshops for parents, some lectures on the specialisms held by the skilled people in your school? Could they go and use your gym? Could the parents go and have a swim? Maximise every opportunity. Could they go and do military fitness in your forest school? Try to get those parents seeing every opportunity that those children will have. Other touch points include when the offers are sent out. So in my last talk for AMKIS, I very much talked about going paperless. I have to say that most of my offers were my very exception to being paperless, because I had so many girls in particular who would write to me to say they couldn't wait to get that offer letter. The fact that I put a smiley face on the envelope on the outside to make them feel excited about it, or the fact that I sent them an actual letter that if they got a scholarship they could frame and put it in their bedroom or show it to their grandparents. That really mattered to the children, and don't forget it's the children that are sometimes making the decisions about which school they're going to go to. All of your touch points need to be efficient and making the most of every opportunity. When reviewing your touch points, involve the whole school. Make sure that everyone in the school understands the reasons for the admissions team. It's so easy for the teachers to forget they can't do their job without you, and we know you can't do your job without them, but make sure that everybody knows this. With regards to all of your touch points, whether they are bridges or firmly positioned on the child or parent bank of the watercourse, make sure that you involve the whole school. I really advocate holding an inset or a session at inset with your teachers and your stakeholders, your pastoral staff as well, to make sure that they understand what your watercourse is and why you're doing it. There's so much misunderstanding within schools. There's also so many skills within schools that the admissions team don't always utilise. Take a step back with your team, and by that I mean the whole team. Get SLT involved, get the heads of departments involved, even get your governors involved. During an inset, whether you can have a whole day or just one session, I would ask all of the staff to draw your watercourse, because you'll be amazed at the misunderstanding within your school of what you're trying to do and what your admissions process actually is. See whether they know where the touch points are and what the point of those touch points is. Get them to draw the channel and then get them to think about how they could improve that channel. Are the right staff at the right events? They've all got differing skills. This is your time to take stock and think about how you can change things, how you can identify gaps in the pipeline, talk about where the bank sides are leaking, whether there's problems at some of your open mornings or some of your tours. Get the whole staff on board and make sure there's no beavers in your organisation creating dams that cause leaks or overflows to your competitors. I know that other speakers over the next few days will talk about the pros and cons of some of the things that can go well and go wrong at certain events. This is just a conceptual idea of going back and thinking about your whole stream to reduce resistance of flow. Use my pen a bit more here. When drawing your channels, make sure you include all of the inputs, your tributaries, and analyse these too to make sure that they are streamlined, that there is no resistance to flow. Some of your rivers will have various tributaries feeding into them. This is the start of everybody's journey. Your tributaries may be word of mouth or internet research. You may have siblings at the school already. The parents may be reading news articles or looking at the Good Schools Guide, reading Muddy Stilettos or looking at Tatler. Really embrace those feeder schools, particularly the heads. I've found in my experience there is so much weight carried by the heads of the feeder schools because all the parents trust them and ask where they think that their child should go. You may have a nursery, a pre-prep, a feeder school within your school. Make sure that you're getting the message out at the very beginning when they're recruiting into the nursery. Make sure it's there are suggestions about what your child is going to be doing in the future at your school when they stay on to 11 plus, 13 plus, 16 plus, do their A-levels with you. You may have an international tributary, and I'm sure many of you have travelled along with me to expos, shows, exhibitions, and had regular agent contact. Now is the time to take a step back and check that you have streamlined every communication that you have with them to maximise that opportunity. Many other schools also have tributaries that might join later in the admissions year, so your one-year IGCSE courses, your sixth form courses, and your short stay and summer courses. Maximise the opportunities. These are complicated, but they can all be visualised within one water course and must be tended to when looking at ways to streamline or maximise recruitment. They must be considered in every business process review. All of your water courses will look completely different, and as I mentioned at the beginning, some of them will have backwaters, or I've actually called them meanders here. Some applicants will meander off on the scholarship route or the bursary arm, but they should all come together in the main channel to accept the place and start on induction day or at your river mouth. Now that I've shown you how I visualise a water course based on a senior school that I know very well, I'd encourage you to take a step back, draw your own water course, get everybody in the organisation to draw the water course so that you can see how they think you're doing it, and then brainstorm ideas of how you could look for ways to optimise it, to reduce resistance and streamline it, to maximise your recruitment flow. Shore up the channel sides, use the wider school, and look after your admissions team. Ensure there is a whole school understanding of the recruitment goals of keeping that channel clear. If you can't hold an inset, how about putting up a notice board in your staff room or an ideas box in your staff room, requesting ideas? They can even be anonymous. Use the wider school's creativity and the community knowledge to help you reach your goal. So many of the teachers in your school will actually be working at other schools and have contacts with other schools, particularly some of your music teachers, maybe your SEN teachers. Some of them will be parents with kids at your feeder schools. They have the intel, they've got their ear to the ground, they hear the playground chat, they know what the rumours are about your school or what the great things are that people are saying about your school. Use them. Everybody in your school is of use to you as an admissions team. Your school counsellors work at various schools. They all have the intel on your reputation. What was the word Bianca said? Entrepreneurship. Use the skills within the school. You can widen the admissions team even further by inviting even current parents to add their ideas via your newsletters or chats. Many of your parent body are actually professional business owners. Many of them are absolute experts in marketing and sales. Use their skills. They have them, and they want to help the school to make it thrive. Ultimately, make sure you understand your customer journey. Keep your decision makers along that journey happy, and make every interaction enjoyable and personal. Optimise all features on your admissions water course. By drawing your water course with its various touch points, you can start to look at how to optimise it and make it more efficient. By making sure you've got the right number of really well executed touch points on your course. Reduce the resistance. Analyse each and every one of your touch points to make sure they are efficient and streamlined. As I said, involve the whole school in their design and in their operation. By doing things to reduce resistance to flow, identify your dam builders. This is a really controversial subject. Who are the people in your organisation who are actually causing the applicants to leak? Is it perhaps the grumpy car park attendant on open morning who said, you can't park there? Or is it the chemistry teacher who was thinking about his next lesson and didn't open the door on a tour or keep the door open while somebody was going through? Is it the catering team who cook fish every Friday and you have your open mornings every Friday so everybody just thinks your school smells a bit fishy? Identify them, work with them. It's really important to look at the input and work with your tributaries. as much as you possibly can, and to work with your current staff body as much as you possibly can. Team up with feeder schools to hold events, workshops in your school for art and drama and sport and music are really vital ways of exposing your clients or your children to what they might experience at your school, and carefully control your input. Don't let the water flood out or evaporate to your competitors. Make sure that every drop of precipitation that hits the ground near you flows along your channel and stays in your channel. Be in control of the flow. Make sure your flow is managed and efficient, and don't let it turn into a dry riverbed or become the whitewater rapids that the admissions staff can't actually have any control over. I hope that this visualisation will help you to streamline your processes and make sure that you have efficient touch points. Maybe open mornings, taster days, messy plays, evenings with the head, or breakfast online meetings, lunches in the head's garden, whereby the parents on the North Bank and the children on the South Bank can come together to choose your river mouth during their entire admissions journey. With the overall aim of streamlining admissions to maximise recruitment flow, I urge you to understand your customer journey, both small and large. Optimise every interaction with a view to reducing resistance. I urge you to draw your own unique water course, work with the wider school to ensure that you're working together to the same goal and reducing resistances together. I think Bianca said, map out your vision. Drawing your water course is you mapping out your vision, thinking about how you can make it better, maximising recruitment flow. She talked about the clarity of the pathway or your dream. In this way, I'm talking about the clarity of your river channel. Understand and work with your inputs, those unique snowflakes who need fun, personal touches, and work with those tributaries. Build strong bridges and touch points that do not hinder flow, but maximise free flow. Make forms accessible, payments easy, frequently asked questions available. Analyse every step of the journey to reduce resistance and maximise conversion. Shore up the banks and make the admissions team strong by reaching out to the wider school and maybe even beyond to your parent body. To make sure the river banks are strong, use your governors, your SLT, heads of department, pastoral team and teachers to ensure that the sides of the river aren't crumbling and resisting anything in the flow. Identify your resistances, your blockages, your beavers, and break down the dams. And finally, ensure that the whole school understanding of your water course and how you optimise your water course is the whole school's job. Make sure that your applicants can travel along the water course via a course of least resistance. Revisit it, improve it, and evolve it. I'm not suggesting you draw your water course just once and stick with it for the next 20 years. This is something that evolves. As I said, as a final reminder, the definition of streamlining is to create a form that presents the least resistance to flow, and that is your job. If you want to discuss any of these ideas further, you can talk to me at the end, or you can reach me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was a really fascinating presentation, and I think a really simple yet powerful concept for us all to visualise all the very different admissions processes that I'm sure we all have. So we have about 5 minutes for questions, and I'm sure Rachel will be very happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great.
Don't be shy.
Hello.
Amount of work and processes involved to get students through the door.
think everybody in the room knows that this is a problem. There's an absolute symbiotic relationship between admissions and teaching. If there are no kids to teach, the teachers can't teach. They don't have a job. And if we haven't got great teachers, the admissions team don't have a job. But sometimes it needs to be really, really clearly stated. And I think that this concept of running a session doesn't have to be a whole day, it doesn't even have to be a whole morning. But if you stood up, or got somebody like me, to stand up and showed the watercourse and explained what the goal is and that it's a whole school goal, that would at least maybe once a year help to reduce the resistance in the flow.
Traffic control, trying to get the plane down to land smoothly and turbulence, and you've got all kinds of things there. So I think the idea of visualising it is very useful.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, thank you for the analogy. I'm sure I'm speaking for lots of people. We do feel at times we are racing in a white water rapid. I think, we all know there's key points in admission where it is almost running away with you, just before someone has to give notice to another school and things like that. So what advice do you give to keep that streamline at those key points where it can see that you are on a white water rapid?
Yeah, I think if you draw your admissions pathway, it's a timeline as well. And what you're doing is making sure that you're not overloaded. There isn't a dam at one point in your course where everybody's going to, the banks are going to fall in. When I took over at Queen Anne's, after the busyness of assessment day in October and getting all of the assessment letters out, we did our sixth form entrance exams in November, but also we did something called Fun Day in November. When I first took over, I scrapped it straight away. It didn't actually do anything, and it wasn't advertising anything about the school. I wanted to concentrate on getting my sixth form applicants done and all the scholarships done and getting ready for common entrance in January. And I actually then moved the touch point, if you like. So there was a very general fun day, which kind of was, kids, come in, it's November, let's all draw fireworks. Didn't really show the primary school kids or the prep school kids that they were going to have this senior school education. They were drawing fireworks at school. So I put something in called open house, which was between when the offers went out and the parents had to tell me on the first Monday in March whether they were taking that offer, and absolutely used that time to optimise their exposure to the school. So the kids went off and did different workshops and activities. The parents had a tour and a Q&A session with the headmistress, and then everybody joined together in the headmistress's garden to have lunch. And that really worked for me. So it's all about mapping out your journey and making sure that your touch points are in the right place for the workflow as well. Any more questions? Hi.
I'm newly enrolled into the admissions role.
Good luck.
Thank you. And one thing I've sort of an observation is the way that the team works differently in terms of home and office balance. So in my team I've got one who works from home 2 days a week and one who works around her own childcare. Just generally asking the audience really is, do you condone having full-time office workers, or does it work to have home and office-based staff?
I think in this day and age you have to have a mix, don't you? But the other thing that I've really discovered in the last few months, because I had another career before I had my kids and before I got anywhere involved with education, I actually had a whole career in the agriculture industry. And I've actually, because I'm now freelance and I can do what I want, I've actually just done I presented a 2-day workshop in the agricultural world last week. It was actually for a big agricultural finance and insurance organisation. And a lot of their agents are just like we are. Lots of them are mums with young kids juggling their work. They had small agencies where suddenly somebody would go off on maternity leave or somebody would want to work from home. Don't get too embroiled in the fact that your problems are unique. Every industry has them, and it was really interesting. Some of the things that Bianca was saying today, I just thought, oh gosh, that's exactly the same in the world of agriculture, and it's exactly the same in the world of education. So, my advice would be make whatever works for your team work, because every school is different, every team is different, all the applicants are different, and every industry is different, and we've all just got to juggle along and work at the best we possibly can. And since lockdowns and all the working from home, I think that it's a massive opportunity to be able to work from home. I mean, I don't know about you, but luckily the school I was working at was a Microsoft Showcase school and really well equipped, and all of the girls already had digital devices. So the girls were able to switch overnight to online learning. The admissions team weren't. And it was a massive opportunity for the IT team to suddenly put us all on the cloud and get us working from home. So, you know, what a fantastic opportunity, and it's moved all of our working lives on so much that, you know, I'm doing a massive project at the moment at an organisation in Hampshire, and I've only been down once, and I've done 12 days for them now working from home. So just embrace it.